Hello and welcome back to You're a Goddamn Cheater with me, Jenna, the Scorpio Moon Coach. Hello. Oh, it's been a couple of weeks. Do you know what? To be totally honest, sometimes I forget I even have a podcast. There's been so much going on. And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, you have this podcast, which you launched back in like the summertime, and you need to record a bloody episode. And there has been a lot going on, and I have been on the most epic trip to Scotland, which I really want to share with you because there were some really quite like big downloads, which I really want to share with you. But today, I'm recording this on the Gemini full moon, and what I've kind of slowly realized whilst been kind of leaning into recording this podcast is that the best time to record an episode is almost like when something like a subject or a topic or emotion or something like that just like really touches you, and like it's so alive in you that you can't, it's like, oh, this is the thing I need to talk about. Because I think the reason why it's been a couple of weeks is, yeah, there has been a lot going on, but also I haven't had that kind of sense of urgency to actually record something. And this morning I was lying in bed like thinking about this topic that I'm going to talk to you guys about today, and all of a sudden it just like it I just felt so much urgency to talk about it. And you know what, it actually and it also scared the shit out of me, which always makes me think, oh, okay, this is probably me stepping out of my comfort zone. Therefore, it's me facing my North Node, which is like your soul's purpose in your birth chart, and I've spoken about that before. And essentially, stepping out of your comfort zone is me heading in the right direction, is what I've kind of worked out now. And this feels, yeah, it feels uncomfortable to talk about, and it feels very vulnerable to talk about. So I just really want to, there has been some massive shifts in my life personally in the last 2 months. And it's all been around intimacy and connecting with another person on that kind of level of like deep intimacy. And what is actually like really brought up in me, and I did know this, I've known this for a while, but again, it's one of those things I think that I've repressed, and I'm like, no, I don't want to look at that right now because there's been so many other things to think about, is actually like the level of connection and kind of a deep understanding and intimacy with myself on a sexual level. Essentially, I am, or I have been, and I'm still like, what? Yeah, I have been so disconnected from my body for a really long time. And I've definitely shared that with close friends this year, but it has been something that I've kind of put to the back of my mind and thought, I'll deal with that when, there's been like the business to focus on. I've obviously been going through a marriage separation and sorting out my new home that I live in and the flat, and like making sure the girls are kind of just kind of being there for the girls as we navigate this new co-parenting journey. So there's been so many other things to think about and to navigate. And this connection with my body, this like connection with the sexual side of like who I am, has been totally repressed. And I've just thought, no, I don't want to think about you right now. Like, I'll just leave that for another day. But basically connecting with this other special person has massively like reignited that inside of me. But it's also brought up like the knowledge and the awareness, I guess, of how disconnected I actually really have been from my body and so many other shadows, essentially. And I guess I just wanted to talk to you about that part because, you know, there was a couple of, I think it was a couple of episodes ago now, I was talking about how I don't want to show up, you know, for a really long time. I thought somebody was going to come along, like a romantic kind of partner, come along and save me. And like we would be two halves and then we would make a whole. And what I've actually totally realized is that you show up whole to a relationship. You don't need anyone to fulfill anything inside of you. Like you just show up whole and then you kind of, you grow together. Is what I massively had this realization. God, it wasn't even that long ago. It was probably about 4 months ago where I had put off going out, like stargazing. And like, it was always something I was like, oh, this would be great to do with another person. Like this would be such a like lovely experience. And at that point I hadn't kind of met anyone. So I was just thinking, you know, it'll happen when it happens. And then all of us, I just had this light bulb moment of, well, you could fucking just do that now. You could just take yourself outside into the garden and stargaze. Like, and I'm just holding myself back from all of these wonderful experiences that I can gift myself, I can do with myself, because I'm just waiting on that other person. And that was a kind of quite a big light bulb moment. And I think in terms of what I'm realizing now in terms of like the connection with my body, with like the sexual side of myself, with like receiving pleasure, all of those things, is that it absolutely starts with me. And I guess what got me thinking this morning is how I've just been kind of thinking about my past, like all the sexual relationships, but also just my thoughts on sex and like how I've kind of connected with my body like since like a teenager, and just like really thinking how that has played a part in where I am now, because it's really been my belief, I think, that the responsibility almost for my like pleasure and how I experience pleasure is almost like through the other. It's the responsibility of the other person, which is so wrong. It's not the other person's responsibility at all. It's all my own responsibility. It is your responsibility to work out what feels good for you, to work out like what gives you pleasure, like what your fantasies are, all of those things. It's all like your responsibility. And I think I've just, over the last month or so, I'm only starting to realize that now. And I think a lot of it just plays a part, I guess, in what culturally we've been shown, in terms of like how sex is portrayed, in terms of like, you just see these, especially in like the kind of rom-coms and stuff that I grew up with, is that people just kind of hook up and they just have the most amazing sex on the first night, and they just like read each other's minds, and they're both like coming within like 5 minutes. Like it's all so fast, and they just kind of get each other and it just clicks, and you just think, oh, that is the connection, that is the spark, because they can just like read each other's minds and they just know what the other one wants. And actually what I'm realizing, it's not that at all. It's actually not that at all. And these things absolutely take time, and actually the kind of deep intimacy of it is actually like really slowing down and being so honest with yourself, and also with whoever the partner that you're with, about what it is that you want. And it's also like using your voice. And I guess that's why I wanted to record this on this Gemini full moon, because Gemini is, you know, it is this air sign. It's about connecting with others through sharing your voice, through sharing your ideas, through sharing your opinions. And my kind of connection with Gemini is that that's where my Chiron is. So your Chiron in your birth chart is this, it's your soul's wound, essentially. It's something that it's like you can't, it's something that's like deeply painful to look at. And I'd always really encourage people to like really investigate like where their Chiron is, what zodiac sign, what house it's in, and to just like start to ever so gently like lean into what that is, because when you start to lean into that Chiron, so much healing comes out of it. And my Chiron is in Gemini, which is this full moon, and how it shows up for me. And I think I'm still uncovering all of how it shows up for me, but it's absolutely been me being so scared to share my voice and to share my opinions on things, and feeling like my voice doesn't have any value and it's not valid and it's boring and all of these things. And I've been so leaning into that this year, obviously from like launching the podcast and doing in-person events. And then I'm like, fuck it, I'm just going to do a podcast on sex and just tell people like what I've been going through, because actually I've, you know, the more I've leaned into that Chiron placement, the more I've actually realized that I do have a voice and my opinion is valid, and all of those things. So yeah, this is why I think it just feels important to just start to begin to share this with you, because it's so where I am right now. And the truth is, I have felt so disconnected from my body for a really long time. And actually I felt there was a good, almost like, I want to say like 5 years really, which does kind of, it's in parallel to me becoming a mum, where I was just like, I'm just not a sexual person. Like, I just don't really need sex. Like it's just not something I need, which is not true. Sorry, I forgot. Which is not true at all. And what I'm realizing is that belief that I'm not a sexual person, I don't really need sex, I don't enjoy it, was a safety mechanism, because it's another thing that I was repressing and pushing down to protect myself, because I knew that I was a sexual person and that was a deeply important part of what makes me me. But having to kind of excavate that and acknowledge that would mean change. And we all know what that means, which is like, no, I'm not ready to kind of deal with you. I don't want to leap into that, because change requires things to, it means like rocking the boat and having to do things differently, and maybe show up and have different, difficult conversations, or just show up in a different way. And I just didn't want to do it. And so, I absolutely, and I definitely felt this, I was starting to feel this way before I became a mum, but I think actually becoming a mum was easier for me. It was my experience. It was easier for me to actually kind of maintain that mask of I'm not a sexual person, because I could hide behind the fact that I was tired and, juggling all the things and the mental load, and there's just no time and all of these things. And so it gave me a permission slip in a way to just like hide from that. But I've known for a really long time that that's a really important part of me. And in the last couple of months, it's like been reignited. And it's a bit like how, for those of you who have like listened to a few of these podcasts or follow me on Instagram, you might have heard me hear about this before. But when I had my birth chart reading done, well over 2 years ago now, we spoke about my big three. So I'm Leo Sun, Scorpio Moon, OVS, and Cancer Rising. And we spoke a lot about what those kind of meant. And I very much related to Cancer Rising. So Cancer is the protector. It's very nurturing. It's like this kind of the mother. It's like mothering energy. And you know, I was absolutely in that point. I was 6 months postpartum at that point with Monica. So I was very in the Cancer vibes. But I think I have been in that kind of that Cancer energy massively for years before that. And then we started talking about my Leo Sun, which is more kind of, there's a playfulness and a joyfulness and a creativity, like a spark, like a kind of wanting to be seen kind of energy, that I was like, oh my God, no, that is not me, like completely rejected it. But after the birth chart reading, I just couldn't stop thinking about it, because we were very much like, and it's really become my belief now that we really do choose the placements in our birth chart. And I just kept thinking, well, that Leo Sun is there for a reason, and why am I not connecting with it? And then slowly over time, I just kept thinking, shit, that Leo Sun is me. Like I actually am a creative person, and I do really want to kind of be seen and show up, and you know, basically doing what I'm doing now. And I've never been happier, because I'm leaning more into that sun sign, which is like the core of like who you are, the massively important part of you. So I really encourage you to just go away and look at your big three and see which one you kind of resonate with more, or which one you don't maybe resonate with more, and then actually see that as an opportunity to lean into why that is. But me ignoring this whole sexual side to like what makes me has been like that Leo Sun. And the more I'm leaning into it, the more that I'm realizing there's a whole side of me, like a whole big part of me that I just haven't been connected with. And yeah, exactly how I felt with the Leo Sun, actually. It makes me feel quite sad, because I feel like there's a whole side of myself that I've completely repressed and forgotten about. But then it also, on the flip side, makes me feel incredibly grateful that I'm like, yay, I've realized. And it's like it's like coming back to life again. Like there's another side of myself that I am just like willing for it to come out. And because I don't want to hide any part of myself anymore. And that was definitely a side that was like under lock and key. And also the other thing is, so I speak a lot on here about Scorpio, and you know, how it loves to be in the shadows and loves to kind of get to the bottom like of situations, so super intuitive. And I speak a lot about that, but in the back of my mind, and this is the truth, every time I've spoken about Scorpio, there absolutely is like a sexual like energy around Scorpio. And I have never, ever wanted to talk about it. Whenever I'd be talking about it, and you know, like on Reels or like in the Rebirth of You, or all of these courses. Sorry, cough. Whenever I'd speak about Scorpio energy, it's almost, and I'm only just really realizing this now, there'd always be like a little whisper in the back of my mind. It's like, yeah, but you're missing your whole other side of Scorpio. And that is this kind of this sexual kind of like energy and like mystery and like alchemy around Scorpio energy. And I have so much Scorpio energy in my chart. And again, this feels like it's like a mask is being like taking off, essentially just being able to like lean into this with you and start to explore it. Because oh my god, I still actually am like really in the thick of it and trying to work through it and navigate my way through it. But it just felt so, I just really wanted to share it with you today because it feels quite significant to, one, acknowledge it, and two, I guess, you know, the whole point of me doing this podcast is that if I could just connect with one person, or just one person could be like, oh my God, that is so me right now, then this is just so like done, success done. Because God, if I've learned anything from doing this podcast, like when I shared with you guys about how I think it was the messages we send ourselves, which I think was only in like August, September, so not that long ago. And I kind of admitted, like, sometimes I don't shower, I don't wash, or like I forget to brush my teeth or something like that, because, you know, I'm always like doing all of the things for other people, and I'm just like, oh, it's fine, I can just wait another day, or, you know. And that's a message where I'm basically telling myself, you're not worthy of like basic hygiene, of like these basic needs that we would absolutely give our children. You're not showing up for yourself. And through me, and I remember the feeling of being like, oh my God, I'm about to admit this and people are going to listen to this. And I've never had so many messages from people being like, oh my God, me too, like I needed this reminder, like thank you. And so I kind of feel like this is, even though I don't have all of the answers yet, I feel like it's important to share, to say that I am on this journey, basically, in the hope that it will resonate with someone and it might just spark something inside of you that makes you think, I want to lean into that. I want to, that feels like me. I feel really disconnected from my body. I feel like I'm not a sexual person. I feel like I don't need sex. But actually, deep down, there is like a longing, there's like a yearning to just be sexual. Like the fact that I'm even saying sexual and like I'm having this conversation is mind-blowing, because, and there will be a few friends on here that will listen to this and will just be like, Jesus Christ. Like, I remember having conversations with my friends not that long ago and almost like wanting to kind of just shrivel up and die, basically, talking about sex and having those kind of conversations, because I just found it deeply uncomfortable. And it's because that side of myself was so repressed. And I used to think, oh God, actually, I'm a bit of a prude. Like, I don't like that, you know, it's not me. And it's just because it felt deeply uncomfortable because it had been hidden for so long. So the fact that I'm just having this conversation is ginormous. And I guess the other thing that really felt alive in me this morning was actually this like awakening of this whole other sexual side of myself starts with me. And I think I've kind of slipped into this like pattern where I think it's going to be ignited or awakened from somebody else kind of coming in, and actually actually just needing another person to explore that with. But actually, what needs to happen is like exploring that sexual side with yourself. So just starting to sit with yourself and think about how you have shown up in like previous sexual relationships. Did you enjoy any of those experiences? You know, and if you did, which ones and why? And if you didn't, why? Like, just kind of questioning all of these things and just getting curious about it. Again, this is so aligned with Gemini energy, because it's just being curious and asking questions. And like, if anything, like, this doesn't have to be like a really deep, heavy thing. It could just be like leaning into it gently with curiosity and just thinking about past like sexual relationships and just being curious and just saying, okay, so did I enjoy that? Yes. Why? Did I enjoy that one? No. Why? And just kind of starting to piece things together. And then also thinking about how, because this has been a big thing for me, is that showing up, like, are you actually comfortable receiving pleasure? And kind of, or does it, because that for me felt deeply uncomfortable, and that me having to, I think it actually kind of ties in maybe into a bit of my Cancer rising energy of like, I tend to show up in like sexual relationships always thinking about the other person and making sure that they're okay. Essentially. And completely not acknowledging like my needs and my desires and what it is that I want. And that has been a massive theme across like my whole sexual history. And then piecing, you know, the pieces of like getting curious about that essentially, and then putting the puzzle pieces together. I've realized that there's lots of blocks there that have happened in previous relationships where it has kind of made me feel like it's hard. It has made me feel like it's so super hard for me to receive pleasure and just like be in the moment with it, almost like feeling a bit unworthy of it. And so I've been really like, and I haven't worked it all out, but I want to, and I really want to lean into that and be curious about it. And that's, I guess that's all I want to share, really, is just that I'm feeling like there's a new chapter beginning, and it actually all starts with, it's like self-love vibes, right? Which is what, you know, I've started on this like in September, like really showing up for myself, like nutritionally and drinking water and washing myself, like really like showing my, really actually what I've done is started from the absolute foundations of like self-love and making sure that I meet all of those. And I've definitely been showing up more compassionately for myself and the way I talk to myself. Like, I think that's hugely important. And now it's like I'm peeling back this other layer, the sexual side of myself, and seeing that actually as a self-love practice, and just being so compassionate with myself as I move through that. And also feeling like I don't need anybody else to fulfill that sexual side of me. Like, actually it's my responsibility to work out what it is that I want, what it is that I desire, like what my fantasies are, like what makes me feel good, and actually just spending time with me, connecting with myself, like with my body, giving myself pleasure. Like, that's where it needs to begin. Like, that's where like the power is. So if you're kind of feeling like that side of you is feeling really like repressed, and you're not kind of, you don't feel like you want to explore that, or it feels like, oh God, this is going to require like some change, know that getting out of your comfort zone with that, just so much, it opens up so much space for growth and like new beautiful things to come in. But also know that you can just do this, can totally like on your own, it's, and see it as a way of just pouring into you. Like this is another, leaning into this with yourself is another way, it's another self-discovery, it's another way of understanding yourself more. And I just don't want to hide that side of myself ever again. That actually made me quite sad that I've, you know, for, oh God, at least 5 years, if not more, that side of me has been totally switched off. And I'm not switching it off like ever again. Yeah, I feel like I want to, there's so many more things that I want to share, but I'm really conscious of that. I don't have all of the answers yet, and I haven't worked everything out. So it feels kind of dishonest to share things that I'm still kind of working through. And yeah, it feels like when I kind of next talk about this, I really want to have like embodied so much more so that I can share it with you with like absolute honesty and truth. But on the flip side, I was like, I just really need to talk about this today. And I really need to just say that this is where I'm at. And yeah, there will be so much more to share with you as I kind of navigate it. And I would love to know if this resonates with you. And I am here in like the DMs, like Instagram, please come follow me at Scorpio Moon Coach. I'm here for those conversations. Because, you know, I think reaching out to, especially starting to speak to friends about this, like close friends, has really helped me kind of start to unlock and to realize how disconnected I have actually been. So I'd love to know if this resonated, and please, yeah, DM me, you know where I am. And yeah, and it feels so significant to be doing this on the Gemini full moon, like I said about like my Chiron in Gemini. And before I go, I just want to remind you, please, 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 take some time for yourself over this full moon. Remember, a new moon and a full moon are your cosmic accountability, like check-in points. We see a full moon and this, I want you to see the full moon in the sky and be like, right, oh yes, this is my time for me. I need to carve out 10, 15 minutes, if not longer, to just sit with myself and do a bit of journaling. And I want you to celebrate. I want you to really, really think about how you have shown up for yourself, whether it's just personal life or your business, whatever. There's no right or wrong way in terms of how you do this. But celebrate that, write that down. We don't celebrate ourselves enough, or hardly ever. And so it's really important to an important practice to actually show up on a full moon is celebrate yourself and write that down. And when you see it in black and white, you will realize how far you've come and how much growth you've had, and where it is that you can. It's so fucking important that we celebrate ourselves. So that is the first thing you need to do. And then the second is to then think about, okay, what has stopped me getting further along, like in my journey, like along my path this month? What things are like standing in my way? What people, what relationships, what jobs, what kind of responsibilities, or what thought patterns, you know, what limiting beliefs or sneaky like little habits are kind of getting in my way and stopping me from moving forward. And so just having an awareness and writing those down, again, awareness is everything, just being able to start to spot them. We're not gonna, just because we write those things down on a full moon does not mean that they're instantly, we're letting go of them, we're releasing them, they're gone. But what it does mean is that we start to get an awareness of it. And so when that kind of that thought pattern, or we get that emotion kind of bubbles up around a certain person, and we start to, and we feel like that isn't right, then we start to notice it. And then every time we notice it, it's like, this is how we're flexing and growing that intuition muscle, is by actually like being still on a new moon and full moon and listening and starting to get an awareness of this stuff. So this is all I want you to do on the full moon. It's just space, and just like sit with your notebook and I want you to write down, celebrate, and then what you're going to let go of. And when you consistently show up for yourself, I mean, it's twice a month. It's just a new moon and a full moon. And I know we are all so busy, and especially as we approach Christmas, but it needs to be seen as a sacred time for you that is non-negotiable, and you need to keep showing up for yourself, because again, you showing up for yourself in that way is a message that you're sending yourself that you are worthy of it. You are worthy of this time. You are worthy of self-reflection and self-discovery and understanding yourself better. And this is how you grow that intuition muscle that we all have inside of us. And that was absolutely the muscle that was like kind of the voice that was like kind of screaming out to me today, was like, just go and record this podcast episode about what you're going through at the moment. It doesn't matter that you don't have all the answers. It doesn't matter that you haven't worked it all out, but it does matter that you are vulnerable and that you talk about something that makes you feel uncomfortable. Therefore, that is courageous. And you just lean into connection with other people, because I know, actually, I'm so fucking confident that there will be someone on here that's listening to this that feels the same way that I do, or has felt the same way. And this will resonate with, and that's why it's deeply important, because it's just the power of one. It's just one person that we need to connect with. And then that has this ripple out effect that we won't even see. We will never see the ripple effects of how we show up in these moments. So yeah, I just had to, it is always my public service announcement of making sure that people show up for themselves on a full moon. And again, be mindful of emotions that come up on a full moon. So full moon is the highest energy point of the lunar cycle, and it all affects us in different ways. Be mindful if you are a Gemini sun, moon, or rising over this full moon, because that sometimes can show up for us more intensely when that kind of zodiac sign like plays into our big three. So be mindful of that. And yeah, I just love you for listening. Like, I'm so grateful you're here. And yeah, I promise I will share more of this as I work it out myself. But also, I'm going to do a podcast episode on Scotland, because it was so epic, and there were so many things that kind of clicked into place and are actually still clicking into place now. Like, it's all the integration, everything of Scotland is absolutely happening. And do you know, to be honest, I don't know if I would have done this podcast episode without Scotland, actually, is the truth of it. So I will do a podcast episode on Scotland, I promise. But for now, I'm going to leave you, and yeah, I will see you next time. Okay, lots of love.